I'm here with Lee Snyder. He's a fintech and blockchain lawyer from New York. Lee, blockchain technology is technology that has a lot of regulation built in. How can blockchain technology help users transact safely?
I think it's a very interesting question. So blockchain does have built-in regulation in the sense that every transaction is on the ledger, every transaction is known and seen by the entire community. But that's not all there is to regulation. It's what happens behind the transaction, what the transaction relates to, that is also important from a regulatory standpoint. So in trying to figure out regulation around blockchain, I've come up with this concept of contextual regulation, which I talked about at the conference in my talk. And contextual regulation looks at the industry that the blockchain is being used for and thinks about how that industry is regulated in order to determine how to regulate the blockchain implementation there. And the last key point is because blockchain has that permanence, because it has that ledger, sometimes the blockchain can help inform how it should be regulated in that industry.
So we basically have built-in compliance beforehand if we use blockchain technology. How does that affect the judicial world? Because they usually react to stuff going wrong.
Yeah, so particularly in common law countries like the US and England, there's this precedent-based idea behind the law, and that you look at prior cases, prior case law, to determine what your outcome should be. So with blockchain, it's actually very similar, right? You see the entire stream of the transaction, so you know what the precedent is. And in trying to determine how the law should apply there, you can look to the blockchain precedent that you see.
Now, blockchain technology operates on the internet. We don't have national borders on the internet. How does that affect regulation? Should countries cooperate?
I'm a very strong believer in countries cooperating in this area. I think it's very important for regulators on a global basis to be thinking about how to approach blockchain as a technology. I very much stress that blockchain is a technology, not an industry, so you can't come up with just a homogeneous regulation for it. But that said, I think there are some basic principles or first principles that can be developed around regulation of blockchain. A couple of them that I articulated were that there should be transparency, that people should prevent fraud at all costs, and that there should be global coordination amongst the regulators to figure out the best way to do this.
Is that happening already, that global coordination?
From the regulators that I've spoken with, yes, it is certainly happening. I think there's been good cooperation amongst regulators in a variety of countries. That's going to continue to expand. The regulators have every incentive to do that because they recognize, I think, the point that you made, which is the internet transcends borders, blockchain transcends borders. So they will coordinate, they will develop some good first principles that can be used for regulation, and they will move things forward, I think, in a way that will be helpful to the community.
Now, regulation aims to be tech neutral most of the time. Do you think that's possible with regards to blockchain technology?
It's a great question, and I'm not sure I have the perfect answer yet. This concept of contextual regulation that I've come up with is designed to take into account the fact that blockchain is a technology, not an industry. And so regulation in a tech-neutral standpoint should follow from that. But invariably what happens is as the technology gets incorporated into a particular industry, the industry learns how to use that technology, the regulators learn how to use that technology, so there will always be that influence on the technology.
Do you expect there to be specific regulation for blockchain technology?
I don't think there will be specific blockchain technology regulation. I think this idea of contextual regulation, this idea that you look at how the technology is being used in a particular industry or for a particular implementation will be the one that takes hold. but there will be some basic principles around it that people will want to put in place. The fraud principle, the transparency principle, that I think will continue to govern all technologies, not just blockchain technology.
Now, this event takes part in preparation for another blockchain hackathon. What do you think a blockchain hackathon can bring us with regards to regulatory efforts?
I think that to the extent the hackathon involves regulators and lawyers and people who are really thinking intelligently about the community, that's just going to expand the knowledge base and will lead to more intelligent regulation, will lead to more intelligent thinking. Whenever you get a group of people together and you have a good exchange of ideas amongst people with open minds, that will be the result long term.
Thank you very much.